What's going on, folks? My name is Spice, this is Spice Can't Fish, and today's video has been pretty much a year in the making. If you guys have seen the title or the thumbnail or anything, you already know what we're doing in today's video, but this is going to be a full unbiased review of this little bait right here, the DRT Tiny Klash. Now, I feel like the majority of you guys know what the DRT Tiny Klash is. It's one of those baits that has kind of taken the industry by storm, but in case you have been kind of living under a rock or have never heard or seen this bait before, this is the little bait we're going to be talking about today. It's a Japanese bait. It is made in Biwa, Japan, so they are a Japanese importer, a JDM product. And this bait here has kind of, again, like I said, taken the industry by storm because it is super versatile. As you guys can see, it's got this little lip in here that actually pops out right there, and the tail actually comes out as well. You can flip the tail around. They make a bunch of different lips for it, a couple of different tails for it as well, and that kind of lets you fish this bait pretty much however you want to. It can be fished as a topwater, you can fish it like a spook or a big glide bait all along the surface. You can fish it like a wake bait, they have some lips that make it wake. You can get it to glide as well, so you can fish it like a glide bait, use it to either cover some water or fish it up along cover. People crank this thing. You can crank it down to like 3 to 5 foot with the standard lip. They also make lips, again, that get this bait way deeper. I've seen lips that go all the way to like 22 foot deep. The different tails will give it different action. Depending on which way you have the tail in the bait will give it a different action. It's an incredibly versatile bait. You can fish it just about however you want to. Now, this past season, you guys have probably seen a lot of this bait on my channel. Like I said, I have fished it pretty much the entire year in preparation for making this video. And before this year, I really haven't picked up the Tiny Klash all too much. I've owned it, I've caught maybe 1 or 2 fish on it previous to this past season, but I just found myself gravitating more towards that big DRT Klash 9, the bigger 9-inch size of this bait. And yeah, I really caught him good enough on the 9-inch. I didn't really see a reason to downsize to the smaller 6.6-inch Tiny Klash. So it just kind of sat and collected some dust. But this past year, again, I wanted to really see what the bait was made of. Because again, people catch a lot of giant fish on this bait. And while personally I thought the bigger bait should catch the bigger fish, I figured I may as well take this thing out this season, really see what it's made of, really put it to the test. And this thing blew my expectations out of the water, both literally and figuratively. I caught a ton of fish on this bait this year. I caught my biggest fish in my life.
Oh my God! 740?
And I think I also caught the smallest swim bait fish that I've caught in my life.
You're kidding me. Look at that, dude. That's what you're looking for.
I don't know how many fish I exactly caught on this thing this year, but I have caught a ton of fish on this little bait, and I am super impressed. And so I figured I may as well put up a full video about my honest thoughts and opinions about this little Japanese bait right here, and why I think if you guys haven't picked up one of these things so far, you definitely got to get your hands on one. But real quick, we're just going to go through the specs of the bait just in case y'all are curious. Again, this is all stuff that you can just kind of look up online, but I figured I may as well just throw it in here real quick. So again, this is the DRT Tiny Klash. This is the smaller 6.6 version, which I think I mentioned. It's about 2.5 ounces, so it's not a super heavy bait. It's also a silent bait, which I was not exactly expecting. I figured there might be a little rattle in this, but the Tiny Klash is entirely silent, which makes it a super subtle bait and really good for clear water. I have come to absolutely love this thing in really all water clarities, but especially clear water. DRT themselves paints this bait up in 34 different colorways, so you should be able to find something that makes you happy or catches fish in your area. This color in particular is called Armor. It's a little bit of a harder color to get your hands on. I think it's just like a Japanese only color. It's just something that you don't really see super often. Kind of just like a normal shad pattern, got a bluish back, but it also has like this darker blue kind of iridescent stripe down the side. But yeah, I really like this color. Again, it's pretty subtle, so it works really well in clear water, but it also has a good amount of shine to it, so when it rolls and glides in the water, it'll throw off a little bit of shine. But yeah, if for whatever reason you don't like any of the 34 colors that this bait comes painted from the factory in, you could also just buy one and have some custom painter paint one up for you in a nice one-off color. But honestly, they got some pretty sweet stuff over there. They got rainbow trout, they got bluegill, they got shad, they got largemouth, smallmouth. I think they have a pike one. They got black ones, they got red ones. Pretty much whatever color you want to get your hands on, they've got a Tiny Klash in that color. And for whatever reason, if you did want to pick one of these things up, if you buy it direct from DRT, they are $99.99. If you buy it from another retailer or like buy it secondhand from someone on eBay or something like that, it might run you a little more or a little less, but brand new, if you buy them from DRT, they are just at that $100 price point. And this is the low float version of the Tiny Klash. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I fished the low float version. They also make a high float version, I think, that stays a little bit higher in the water column, but personally, I like to fish this thing where it just kind of like stays right in front of the fish's face. Maybe like a super slow rise, but you really just want this thing to suspend in front of those fish. But yeah, I guess we can go right up into my thoughts on this bait. First of all, like I said, it is a low float, so it does float very slowly, but it is a super tunable bait. Like I said, you can change all the components on it, but you can also add either some bigger hooks or smaller hooks, depending on how you want the bait to run, or add like some grenade weights to the hook or like a weight strip to the bottom of it. And this thing will really do just about whatever you want it to do. I prefer my bait, again, to mostly suspend, but just very lightly float back up to the surface. This way if I'm fishing around or over cover, it won't get super hung up. I did switch over to some smaller hooks, and that actually made the bait rise quite a bit faster, so I think for this coming year I'm going to switch back to the normal size hooks or something a little bit beefier at least. Get this thing to suspend just a little bit more. But again, like I said, it's a super tunable bait, so whatever you guys want to do with it, whatever your style of fishing is, you can get the bait to emulate that. Now the way I like to fish this bait, again, is around cover. I'll fish it just about set up how it is right now, with the lip in and then the tail facing so that the curve is facing up. I think that's tail mode A. I'm not 100% sure. They have a couple of different tail modes, A and B. I just don't know which one is which. But yeah, I like to fish this thing around cover, mostly up around docks or around some standing timber and stuff. That's where I find this bait especially excels. And 99% of the time, I am dead walking this bait, which is pretty much just getting it down to a depth and then just giving it a nice little twitch, and letting it kind of just walk in place. This bait is super good at staying in position if you're walking it, so if you're fishing it around any sort of cover, this is one of those baits that's just going to kind of sit there and really soak in the strike zone. I really just treat this bait kind of like a big jerk bait, with a joint in it, obviously. Again, it is kind of supposed to be like a glide bait, but I find myself having a hard time getting the smaller Tiny Klash to glide. If I'm fishing a glide bait, I'll usually try and find something that actually glides a little bit better. This one's just a little bit hard to control. It tends to be really erratic when it darts side to side, and it'll more like roll and blow out than it will actually glide most of the time. You have to be like super good with it, and I'm not super good with it. Out of the two, I'd much prefer using the Klash 9 as the glide bait, and this one, again, as like a little cover glide, fishing it super slow around stuff. But yeah, if you guys see me fishing this bait, this is pretty much how you're going to see it set up. Lip in, tail facing up. But yeah, I guess we can kind of go over my pros and cons of this bait, and then we're going to get into a nice little fishing montage. I'm going to just kind of take all the clips of me catching all of my fish on this little bait here, put them all together in like a little montage for you guys and play that at the end of the video. So we'll get to that in a minute, but right now we're going to start on the pros and cons list real quick. And spoiler alert, I don't really have a ton of cons on this bait. It is mostly just a pros list, to be honest. So first up, I love how versatile the bait is. Like I said, you can fish it just about however you want. I've kind of found my best way to fish it, but you can fish it in other ways if that's what you want to do with it. Like I said, you can crank it, you can fish it as a topwater, you can do just about whatever you want with this thing. Again, if you're really good with the gliding action, you can get this thing to glide. I just find for me and my applications, it really does excel as a little dead walk around cover. But yeah, super versatile bait. It also has a great color selection. Like I said, it was like 34 colors, just straight from the factory. Again, you can get someone to paint this thing up just about however you want. If you want like a bright pink one for whatever reason, I think they actually make one of those from the factory, but if you can't get your hands on it, you can always have someone paint it for you. But yeah, there are very few hard baits that have like 30 plus colors on their select, and the fact that this one has that many is a huge check in my book. One of the main reasons that I didn't pick this thing up was because, again, I really like throwing around that big Klash 9. I felt like I got bit on it really well and didn't really need to downsize to a smaller bait to get bit. That being said, though, if you are getting into swim baits and you don't want to throw something absolutely giant, this is a great bait for you to pick up really early. You don't really need an actual swim bait rod to throw this thing. Like I said, it's 2.5 ounces, so you could get away with throwing it on a heavy flipping stick if you really wanted to. I obviously prefer to throw it on a swim bait setup. I'll throw it on my lightest, most finesse swim bait setup, but you really don't necessarily have to if you don't want to. The stock hardware on the bait is also pretty solid. I don't have the stock stuff on my bait anymore. I actually broke one of the hooks while I was bank flipping a fish. But the stock hooks are phenomenal. They're super sharp. I don't know who exactly makes them. They might be just like a DRT hook, but whatever they are, they're great. Again, I broke one after bank flipping a fish, but I certainly should not have bank flipped that fish, and I think I'd caught like probably 25, 30 fish on that hook before it broke. So overall, really solid hardware on this thing. The split rings on them are also pretty good. I change out the split rings just to be safe, but the hardware that they come with stock is pretty solid, so you don't really have to. But overall, it's a sweet little bait. Like I said, I have thrown this thing around, caught some giants on it. It's a perfect little profile if you're trying to imitate any sort of smaller bait fish. Obviously, it's great for a bait fish presentation, so a shad or a shiner, even a bluegill presentation goes pretty well with this thing. But you can also get kind of crazy with it, throw a little juvenile bass pattern on one of these things. But yeah, kind of a perfect size profile, not super, super tall, not super long, just kind of a perfect little morsel for a smaller fish to eat. But at the same time, definitely big enough for a bigger fish to take a swipe at. As you guys are going to see in a little bit, I caught my personal best on this thing. So the big ones are going to go after it too. Now, the only couple of gripes that I have about this bait, first of all, like I said, I really can't get this thing to glide. It is a little bit more of a difficult bait just to fish as a glide bait. There are a ton of other glide baits on the market that I think glide a little bit easier, a little bit better, even in this smaller profile. And so if I'm looking to fish a dedicated glide bait, maybe just cover some water with something, the Tiny Klash is really not going to be the bait for me. Again, I don't really crank this thing, so I'm not going to fish it like a crankbait, and it's really not great for covering water. It again does really well just kind of sitting in place. So yeah, if you're looking for a smaller glide bait that's actually going to glide and you're going to be able to cover some water with, I would probably suggest getting something different other than this. Again, you can get it to glide. I just think there's a lot easier options, a lot better options out there. Especially for the price, they are kind of expensive, which is another thing that I don't absolutely love. For a 6.5 inch bait like this, having it be just about $100 is a little bit pricey in my opinion. But of course they are getting imported from Japan if you're buying them over here. So they're gonna be a little more expensive because of like the shipping costs and all that stuff. But overall they are a little bit on the pricier side. I feel like again, if you're looking for just a glide bait, this is probably not something you wanna go for. And I guess the other thing that I don't absolutely love about these things is they're not super, super available. They are starting to get a little bit easier to get your hands on, but especially a few years ago, these things were impossible to buy. You would be seeing people sell them for like $130 for a little bait like this. And yeah, the demand was super, super high. The supply was pretty limited. Like I said, now they're starting to pump out some more baits, so they're a little bit easier to come by. But yeah, still not the easiest thing to get your hands on. So if you guys are looking for one, I would highly suggest checking out eBay. Maybe keep an eye out on the swim bait forums or some Facebook groups or something like that. There are a couple of retailers over here in the States that will sell these things, but they do tend to sell out pretty quick. So if you want to go the retail route, I would say probably get on like an email list for whenever the bait comes back in stock next. But yeah, overall, don't have a ton of bad things to say about this bait. I absolutely love it. Again, I've caught a ton of fish on it. If I wasn't a believer before this past season, I'm certainly a believer now. This little Tiny Klash is the deal. But yeah, I think that's just about everything I wanted to tell you guys about the bait. And now we're going to get into the fishing montage. Again, this is probably going to be just a bunch of clips of me catching fish back to back to back. I'll probably cut them up in some weird fancy way and try and make it look all cool or whatever. But yeah, really hope you guys enjoy the montage. Alrighty folks, that's going to do it for today's video. I really hope you guys enjoyed. It was really kind of a pain for me to film this video. I've been putting it off for weeks and weeks at this point, but I figured it was finally time for me to sit down, really tell you guys my honest thoughts and opinions about this little tiny Klash. You guys let me know down in the comments if you guys have fished this bait, if y'all have caught any big fish on it, and let me know if you guys like this style of review videos. Again, it takes a pretty long time for me to actually fish the bait for as long as I feel comfortable until I can actually give you guys some honest thoughts and opinions. But if you guys like these swim bait reviews, maybe we'll do a little bit more of a condensed version coming up next year. I don't think I'm going to fish one bait the entire season like I did last year. To be honest, I did get a little bit bored of fishing the tiny Klash. But if you guys like the swim bait reviews, then I'll try and figure something out, see if we can pump out some more of these guys coming up this season. But again, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see some more content from me. Check them and wreck them, and I'll catch you on the next one. I'm out. Peace.